We are live now.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are delighted to welcome you to this international conference. Your strong participation today reflects the importance of this theme and our collective commitment to creating a more secure world. Today's conference will turn around crucial theme, safe community, zero violence, building secure and respectful environments. Around the world, communities face various forms of violence affecting individuals, families, and societies as a whole. Ensuring safety and respect in our environment is not just a necessity, but a fundamental right for all. Creating violence-free communities require awareness, strong policies, active engagement, and collaboration at all levels, from grassroots initiative to international advocacy. In this session, our esteemed speakers, experts in community security and violence prevention, will share effective strategies and real-life experience to help us build safer and more respectful communities. Through their insight, we aim to explore practical solutions, prevention measures, and the collective responsibility we all share in fostering an environment of safety, dignity, and respect. I am Ongla Pascaline, a Cameroonian woman protection activist, Woman Ascension Fellow of Community Outreach Department, a certified member of Woman Ascension Organization, and Value Health Africa National Coordinator. I have the privilege of moderating this session. Before we begin, please keep your microphone mute during the presentation and use the chat to ask your question. A Q&A session is scheduled for the end of the intervention. This session is not just about identifying problems, but also about empowering action, how we can work together to ensure every community in a place where people feel safe, valued, and respected. I am now honored to introduce our first speaker. Please join me to welcoming Dr. Renuka Thakore from United Kingdom. Dr. Renuka is the founder of Global Sustainable Future, Progress Through Partnership United Kingdom, a recipient of prestigious awards like the Star Volunteers Award 2033, and Governor Enrique Tomas Cresto Award 2022. Dr. Renuka bridged the global North and South, uniting academics, business, and individual to drive sustainable development. Dr. Renuka, you can open your mic to start. Thank you for accepting our invitation to share your experience. Welcome to the session, and then the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Congratulations to the organizers, and good day for everyone, ladies and gentlemen, including any dignities and esteemed colleagues. Thank you very much. So I'm honored to be here today to speak about the cause that resonates me deeply: zero violence, building secure and respectful environments. In today's rapidly changing world, the urgency to create secure and respectful environments have never been so great. We live in a time where violence, it may be physical, emotional, and digital, it is everywhere more becoming pervasive, whether it is about violence at home or harassment at workplace or exploitation in public spaces. The consequences ripple through families, societies, and generations. So it is very, very important to have ourselves into these discussions. Especially after the COVID-19 pandemic, causes of domestic violence surged worldwide, exposing vulnerabilities that existed within homes and also at the workplace, it continues to see gender-based harassments and discrimination, and public spaces. Once they used to mean to be a safe zones, but often now they have become a breeding grounds for violence fueled with intolerance and ignorance. So to address these challenges effectively, we need a multidimensional approach that recognizes the importance of safety, dignity, and respect in every sphere of life. So let me focus on home first. It is the foundation of security. Our homes should be the sanctuaries where love, trust, and respect prevail. Yet, many homes become places of fear and violence, particularly for women and children. Domestic violence, emotional abuse, and control strip individuals of their dignity and autonomy. So we must respect for privacy, personal desires, and emotional boundaries, and they should be cultivated within our families. Empowering families with education, consoling, and awareness programs can create safer homes where individuals are free to express individuals without fear. What happens at the workplace? Generally, they used to foster safe and inclusive cultures. However, where people need to strive, they just survive. And therefore, and it is very unfortunate to highlight that gender bias, harassment, and lack of equal opportunities remain widespread. The safe workplace is to build with or on, we can say, respect, inclusivity, and accountability. Policy reforms such as, strong reporting mechanisms, whistleblowing, and many others like that, safeguarding, and leadership accountability are critical to creating workplace where people feel valued, heard, and secure. We need continuous dialogues and gender-sensitive policies that promote an environment of trust and mutual respect. What happens with the public spaces? They are for everyone, regardless of gender, race, or black background, and they should be feeling secure and free. But violence, harassment, and discrimination often rob individuals of this freedom. To create safer public spaces, urban planning, community engagement, and awareness campaign must taken into tandem by involving citizens and co-creating, public spaces where that can be measured and ensure the presence of adequate law enforcement and technology-driven surveillance. We can foster environments where the security is a shared responsibility. Let me talk about the digital space, which is now very common, and there is a double-edged sword. In the era of digitalization, where our lives are moving online, where technology has opened new avenues for education, advocacy, and empowerment, however, they have exposed individuals to cyberbullying, misinformation, and digital exploitation. AI, deepfakes, and misinformation have perpetuated, violence by manipulating narratives and eroding trust. We must advocate responsible digital behavior, stronger cybersecurity policies that govern digital literacy, and to ensure that the technology becomes the tool for empowerment and not for exploitation. In all, I would say that the role of policy, collective voices, and systemic change is needed or required even more. Legislations can protect vulnerables and hold perpetrators accountable and critical. Collective voices can, especially those of women and marginalized communities, should be systematically heard or put forward to the legal forces that can contribute to this. And community engagement and education is the foundation to create respect, empathy, and equity. So all these, to move towards zero violence, we must be building secure and respectful environment, and that can be done by all of us by co-creating a safe environment. For building, we must be putting these dialogues again and again in the form that we are comfortable, and also to take them to the higher level, to the policy makers or decision makers, so that we can build this environment. And we should be a part of aspirations for everyone to make that reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hanuka. Thank you for this amazing presentation. And what we understand of what you are saying, first, we see that during the COVID-19, the domestic violence raised. And secondly, the violence is not only a physical issues, but also digital issues. We need to be together. We need to put in place some policies. We need to involve communities to support those vulnerable people. So to continue to that side, our next speaker is Eileen Taylor from Italy. She is a human rights advocate and junior project coordinator, specialized in gender equality, social justice, and legal research. She will give more detail about her soon. She will talk about digital activism and intense building a movement for gender justice. Eileen, if you are there, you are welcome. Please take the mic and the floor is yours, Eileen.
Thank you for your welcome, and I'm very happy to be here today. I'm just going to share my screen and my slides. Everyone can see my slides?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
So as I was introduced, I am a co-director of Politics for Her Europe, an NGO, where I've dedicated myself to human rights activism for the past more than 5 years. And my journey has led me to advocate for diverse causes, from supporting patients with advanced breast cancer to joining the crucial End Gender Apartheid campaign in Afghanistan, where I work alongside passionate volunteers to amplify voices that demand to be heard. So, first of all, I think one of the main aspects of the work or main aspects, important aspects that I've learned in my role at Politics for Her is the power of digital feminism, because it transcends the simple transition of activism to online platforms. It represents a fundamental transformation in how we conceptualize and pursue gender equality in our increasingly interconnected world. Through the strategic use of digital platforms, we've cultivated vibrant spaces that nurture feminist discourse and dramatically improve accessibility for marginalized voices and foster meaningful democratic participation that transcends traditional geographical limitations. In this increasingly connected world, digital platforms have become essential tools in documenting and addressing gender-based discrimination. Through Politics for Her platform, we've created systems to track incidents, share resources, and provide immediate support to those facing discrimination or harassment. With this digital presence comes increased responsibility, because we must always prioritize digital security and privacy for activists. Our team has developed comprehensive security protocols to protect our members, recognizing that online safety is just as crucial as physical safety in today's world. Oh, yeah. So at Politics for Her, our framework is that of intersectionality that acknowledges the intricate ways in which systems of oppression and privilege manifest in online environments. We carefully examine how various identities, including race, class, sexuality, disability, and gender, converge to shape distinct digital experiences. This nuanced understanding guides our unwavering commitment to establishing secure spaces for underrepresented communities and forging powerful coalitions across diverse feminist movements. So one example that we did recently was looking at the reality of violence and discrimination for LGBTQIA women in Europe, which contemporary data reveals deeply troubling trends in our digital landscape. The more comprehensive LGBTIQ survey composed by the Fundamental Rights Agency has uncovered disturbing statistics. More than 2/3 of participants report experiencing hate speech, accompanied by a substantial surge in violence since 2019. The situation in Southern Europe is particularly alarming, with documented increases in online hatred reaching staggering levels, a rise in 185% in Portugal and 130% in Spain. These online threats extend to real-world consequences. And at Politics for Her Europe, we conducted a questionnaire which revealed that LGBTQ plus women frequently restrict their movement and limit public displays of affection due to fear of backlash or violence. Many couples have faced verbal or physical assault simply for expressing affection in public. As one respondent powerfully stated, holding hands and kissing in public should not be an act of bravery or activism. It should not make us self-aware and worried about other people. This testimony highlights the emotional burden carried by queer women who must constantly navigate their identity in public spaces, not as self-expression, but as an act of survival. So our strategic response must encompass multiple dimensions. We're actively developing resilient digital communities engineered to withstand evolving platform dynamics, while simultaneously creating sophisticated tools for documenting and confronting discrimination. Perhaps most significantly, we're establishing robust global solidarity networks capable of mounting swift, coordinated responses to emerging gender-related challenges. But we need to combine digital and physical activism. While digital platforms serve as powerful catalysts for change, meaningful transformation requires seamless integration with traditional physical activism. Our comprehensive strategies enable us to amplify local movements and grassroots initiatives while ensuring their authentic voices remain central to our narratives, provide tangible community connections and support systems that bridge the digital-physical divide, and coordinate local actions and protests effectively while maintaining security and strategic impact. So looking forward, the powerful words of Audre Lorde continue to resonate. Your silence will not protect you. The evolution and sustainability of our movement hinge on our collective ability to speak truth to power adapt to emerging challenges, and maintain unwavering solidarity across digital spaces while remaining firmly grounded in our core feminist principles. In this crucial moment, we must amplify our voices, share our diverse stories, and strengthen our networks of mutual support. Our unity serves as the foundation of our collective power, and through this shared strength, we nurture hope as we progress together on this transformative journey towards universal equality, dignity, and acceptance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eileen. Very, very inspiring topic. So what we can say is that digital is a kind of weapon. In the good hand, you can create an amazing things to protect and save people. In the bad hand, we can say that digital creates a lot of disasters. We know the case where we register a lot of suicides from digital harassment. So thank you very much for your presentation. And we continue with our next distinguished speaker. She's a devout professional in the violence against women and girls sector with over 8 years of experience in community development, education, and program management. Her name, Emilia Djiapouras from Greece, and she will talk about the impact of violence on young people and their desire for social change. Emilia, let me know if you need more time. If you are available, sorry, the floor is yours if you are ready for us. Emilia.
Thank you so much. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you for the warm welcome. And thank you everybody for being here. You know, time is not refundable. So, you know, I really appreciate you being here. So I'm also going to share my screen just to get going on the okay. So I'm going to be starting a little bit more about this one quote that was said in my bachelor's in youth work and community development when I graduated a few years back, about 2018. And one of the quotes that my program leader of that course repeatedly said to us as qualified youth workers, later qualified youth workers, was that young people's minds are like parachutes, and it is our duty to open those minds. And on the topic today of talking about zero violence and building respectful and safe environments, I really want to touch more on the experiences of young people and the voices of young people in the fight to have a safer world and to end violence, specifically against women and girls, but at the same time, violence, you know, is non-discriminatory. It will take whoever it can. And to begin my talk, I wanted to focus on something that is an extremely relevant topic today, and maybe you know exactly what I'm talking about when I'll get into it. And it's this mini series that was recently released in the United Kingdom, and it was co-written by a great in British television called Stephen Graham, and I believe his name is Jack Thorne. And it's called Adolescence. And this story, and I'm so sorry, I am about to give a few spoilers, but it's been around for a few weeks. So I am hoping that it's just everybody has watched it or is dying to watch it. But I'm really sorry, I'm about to give some spoilers. It talks about a young boy who is living in Liverpool, and he unfortunately stabs a young girl, a 13-year-old girl, to death 7 times. And the reason why I believe this story has swept the nation so much is because it rings true as headlines that we will see across the United Kingdom often. And even though I'm living in Greece, I am half British, so I'm very connected to the British scene when it comes to violence and young people. One thing that I noticed about this show, and if you watch the show, if you've already watched it, you'll notice that Jamie is a polite, soft-spoken, likes history, loves playing video games kind of a boy. He's 14, 13 at the time. But when life gets tough, he doesn't ask for help. He doesn't cry. He doesn't believe that that's something that he should do as a man. He turns to Instagram in the hope that somebody will listen to him. And he turns to Andrew Tate and to the manosphere. And the manosphere is also another phrase that's sweeping across the United Kingdom and I mean, the world, really. But it's basically a phrase that where people like Andrew Tate and voices like that are particularly sexist and misogynistic sweep across social media, and they create this manosphere, this area where boys and men specifically can just talk about women and degrade them and humiliate them online. And what happens here is that these people online are telling this young 13-year-old boy who later stabs this girl that he needs to have the power, and his power is in the way in which he controls others. He's then ingrained to think that women must be tricked, dominated, and controlled by men, that it is their duty to put women, quote unquote, in their place. And even though his father, you'll see in the story, what I love the perspective of the show is that it shows the heartbreak of the family left behind as this person has committed this crime. And although it's evident that his father loves him, he turns away and he's absent and he works long hours. And this being something that a working class family, you know, it's almost inevitable. You have to work. We don't have the privilege of always being and doing what we would like. So Jamie was bullied and he was humiliated and excluded. And the only community that embraced him was the comment section of Instagram. And specifically, boys just like him, boys his age, boys looking for identity. So he was a victim of something what we would call as incel culture. And one of the main, that's not come out very well, but one of the main elements of incel culture is that it, again, sees women as lesser than. And to understand the scope of this violence, to understand the way in which young people see the world around them, is to also use a very popular tool called the power and control wheel. It's made in Duluth in Minnesota. It was basically to outline the ways in which power and control are used to abuse people around them. So it manifests its way in very structural and systemic ways against young people. The Duluth Power and Control Wheel was originally created in the feminist scene. It was to address domestic abuse, and thank you, Dr. Renuka, for bringing that up in the talk as well, and to address the experiences of those people that go through that. So things like emotional abuse and anger and threats and coercion. And these are the kind of things that young people are facing every day. And what that show, Adolescence, really highlights is that young people have very limited power and control over their lives. They are not given the choice in which who is in power. They're not given any democratic rights to access. And this is a very particularly difficult thing for young people to deal with. But to really echo Frederick Douglass, who was a well-known philosopher and writer who actually escaped slavery in the United States, he speaks very clearly that it's easier to build strong children than it is to repair broken men. And I really have to echo what he's saying here, because at the end of the day, I will go back to my quote at the beginning of this talk, where young people's minds are like parachutes, and it is our duty to open them. We need to understand we have our full access in many ways, not all, but in some ways, full access to democratic rights. And some don't. And we need to make sure that we're on the side of solidarity for them. But for young people, their decision-making is almost entirely limited. And the BBC News article released recently, speaking about adolescence, this show that I've just spoken about, shows that young people across schools in Sheffield specifically want that show to be streamed across the United Kingdom. Something which the director was pushing for anyway, but the fact that the voices of those young people are coming through, and on a BBC News article, which often, I don't know if you read BBC News, they're often not impartial, and they do not really give a voice to the young, to the oppressed. And it was interesting to say that when I was reading that article, I also read how one of the boys was saying that he admitted to watching over 8 hours of social media a day. And he, quote unquote, says mostly Andrew Tate stuff. So he's seeing this repeat imagery of men on the manosphere, online, on social media, using and manipulating vulnerable young boys like himself. Another quote, another statistic that really shocked me recently was saying that 60% of children have seen real world acts of violence on social media, according to the Youth Endowment Fund of 2023. And 20% of young people, that's 1 in 5, would rather not go to school because they don't feel safe. I know I'm focusing heavily on the UK, but because I was born there, I was raised there, and there's a lot of information that I know there. I'm so excited to hear everybody else speak, because at the end of the day, we need to have different cultures. We need to have different perspectives and voices to understand what's going on and how we can unite. And an Ofsted report released recently in 2021 noted that sexual assault was rife in schools across the United Kingdom. And we're not only talking about young people here, it's also female staff. They're reporting assault in schools by young people. And young girls are reporting that their boys want to play games with them, such as rape touch or pin down. And that pin down game is effectively that they will pin them down somewhere and force a kiss on them. The reason why I'm echoing young people's voices here is because, like Dr. Renuka said at the beginning as well, and Eileen Taylor, is that we're talking about safe spaces. And young people, the most spaces that they will be in is in the home. It will be out in the public spaces, such as parks and there, but it's also in school. So my main focus of this talk is to also talk about how schools are supposed to be an enlightening, empowering, and expressive environment for young people's creativity and potential to shine. And yet what we're noticing in the UK specifically, my data is showing the young people aren't feeling that. And that is not a reflection that it's just happened out of nowhere. This is not coincidence. Adults have failed young people. Ofsted also reported they visited 30 state and independent schools, and 900 pupils were spoken to. 9 out of 10 girls who spoke to an inspector noted that they were exposed to sexist name calling and being sent unwanted explicit videos and pictures by their male counterpart classmates, including unwanted touching at school. And they said, quote unquote, it happened a lot and it happens sometimes. So this is harrowing. And this really echoes that young people are asking for us to do something about it. They will speak to an inspector that they don't know, that they don't have to trust, but they choose to trust them. And that's a really important aspect of when we address youth violence. We need to know that they don't have to tell us anything. They don't have to, but they choose to, because they know that there are people like you, like I, that will want to make a change. And the way that we can do that is by creating social support networks and empowering them through advocacy. I was a young person's advocate in a school in the United Kingdom for a few years until I moved here to Greece. And I noticed that just spending a few hours a week with young people, having a session where you, from the get-go, you outline that you'd like to listen to them and you're doing this job because you would like to hear their voice, is quite emotional. It's quite empowering for young people to experience that, because they feel like there's this sense of collective action and community change. And to echo that notion, I want to bring back a quote by a favorite writer of mine, actually. Her name is Arundhati Roy, and she says, "There is no such thing as the voiceless. There are only the deliberately silenced or the preferably unheard." And what really rings true with that quote is that young people's voices are there. And there are multiple initiatives, whether it's the UNFPA or it's a worldwide organization, a well-known organization like Amnesty International, they're setting up initiatives. This is great. This absolutely is. But at the same time, we need to recognize that young people have always played a role and then have always been agents of change on different matters. For example, I mean, I'm just going to run through a few that I found from researching for for this talk, and it was there's multiple accounts of young people coming together, gaining essential skills in conflict resolution, and trying their best to make sure that there's a safer world for them. And you've got things like yes, here we go. Things like the Never Again movement. You've got Fridays for Future, which was led by Greta Thunberg. She set out to say that they're like, no more. The world is probably going to end if we do not do something now. These are the main points that we wanted to highlight, that young people have led movements. It's been successful. And it's often working class young people, and that intersectionality, which was coined by Kimberly Crenshaw, a phenomenal feminist researcher from the second wave of feminism in the 70s, and then she's continued to make work, to produce work in the 90s until today. She talks about that intersectionality of gender, race, class, echoing Angela Davis here as well, that we have to make sure that we incorporate all layers of people's lives. And whether I myself cannot relate to somebody's specific characteristic, I must know that I have to see them for them to see me. And it's the only way that we can highlight that forward. And so these are just some of these movements that I've read about recently, but we can talk about movements that have been across the world, such as the EndSARS protest in Nigeria, the Project Finance Bill 2024 in Kenya, the East Africa crude oil pipeline protests in Uganda, and these echo how young people take to the streets to demand better governance, and also have the fervor of historical movements to change. We see so many different movements, specifically across the African continent as well. We see women in the Angolan Revolution for independence. We see the women of Liberia and Sierra Leone, the Christian and Muslim women that came together and decided that we cannot let this violence continue in our area, and they came together. And forgive me, I can't actually remember their names, but they are part of the reason why years later there are initiatives that are set in place to protect young people. So these are the people that Arundhati Roy is talking about, where young people are the voiceless, and specifically in some regions, women are also the voiceless. And we've made that choice to actually advocate for young people and make them agents in social change. Rates of violence in the UK are increasing in England. And so the UK is split into 4 parts. There's Northern Ireland, Scotland, England, and Wales. And England, last year, there was a report released that it was increasing in youth violence, and that violence against women and girls and domestic abuse specifically is now considered a national emergency. So, I've been working with charities and youth advocacy organizations since the beginning of my career, since I was 19 years old. And it's not new. None of this is new information. But at the end of the day, we are doing our absolute best to make sure that we are heard, and that young people's voices are at the forefront of any movement that we have. So how do we create supportive environments for young people? One is to foster inclusive dialogue. And I echo that again, that Kimberly Crenshaw makes it clear. We have to have people of all perspectives coming towards us and building our networks and sustaining that engagement. And that's a very important part of any movement that tries to eradicate violence. Another thing would be that whatever industry you're in, I believe many of us might be in the same industry, but build those links within that industry, because I kid you not, there are definitely opportunities either for young people to be involved or for you to speak to young people. You could be a project manager that is who works as an architect, architectural firm. I'm making this up, but basically you could then see whether there's a community centre that's being built, and what are the voices of young people there? How do they want those spaces? In the UK alone, just 70% of funding to the youth service has been cut since 2015, and that's often with 15 years of austerity in the Conservative government, but there's also other factors there. Violence against young people is something that we need to call ourselves to action to end. Whether it's our own family members, whether it's people we know, whether it's a school nearby, get involved. Research issues that young people are faced with. Tool yourself up. Another professor at my university would always say that, like, whatever you have in your backpack, your rucksack, you need to unpack it. And it's going to be filled at different points in your life. And you just need to know what's in that backpack, really. You're not going to leave your house and not know what's in there. You know, there's your keys, there's some water, there's a book, maybe, there's your laptop. These are all things that are necessary. So we need to unpack our backpacks, put what's in there, what's useful. We only need to take the necessities, but we also need to be empowered and work with young people. More than anything, we need to be working with young people. And they are, from working with young people since I was 19, or since I was a young person, and in the UK, a definition of a young person is 11 until 25, when they can usually access services. They want to talk. And it will take time. Some young people will give you a bit of chat back. They'll give you a bit of attitude. But that's okay. You don't know where they're coming from. Always spread kindness, because you don't know what's happening with them. You just need to work out what they need and meet them there. And whether you are working directly with them or there's another way that you can get involved, I plead with you to give them the time and energy, and to understand that, you know, over 12,000 teenagers in England between the ages of 13 to 16 are reporting poor mental health, specifically from social media related issues. And we're not talking about, also a current issue in the United Kingdom is that the pulling the rug underneath from disability rights and people who have disabilities right now. And we're not talking about adding on there. This is just specifically 12,000 young people that said that I'm struggling because I see somebody online that is, you know, they look different to me, and I don't know how to manage my mental health around this. So yeah, that's a little bit about how I feel we have youth-led movements, as well as, you know, young people involved as as agents in social change. And I believe it's our job, again, to use our voice, because Justin Treasure, a famous speaker and writer, said that it is that the human voice is an instrument that everybody knows how to play. We just need to share it with one another. And I believe that rings true today, it rings true yesterday, and it will ring true tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Emilia. And I saw a lot of people sharing their points in the chat box. It means that your topics is very exciting one. And I think it is a very inspiring and a big research work. I think it will be a big example for some civil societies who work with the protection of youth, young people protection. I think, thank you very much. And I know that your slide will be shared to most of us here, and so that we take more time to read and use it for our future work on the fields, working with young people. Thank you very much once again, Emilia. So now I don't know if Dr. Agness Mumba Wilkins is with us. Dr. Main, please, can you confirm if Agness is with us?
I think we should move with the next speaker.
Okay.
Yes, I'm around.
So,
No,
okay,
she is here.
Thank you. Welcome, Doctor. Because
Thank you so much.
So okay, let me introduce you with my full her that I present you Dr. Agness Mumba Wilkins from United States and Zambia. She's our next speaker now. Dr. Mumba is a visiting research fellow of University of Sussex in UK, and associate research partner at MarshMap consultancy group. Her expertise span education, gender, sexuality, religion, culture, economic, law, race, ethnicity, class, and location in shaping inequality. So, Doctor, you have an amazing topic. So, floor is yours now. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you so much, Pascaline. Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be teaming up again to do what we do best, creating collaborative platforms for information or knowledge sharing. So in my discussion today, I'll do some broad brushes from the international to the African region, but I will delve more on a specific context that is Zambia, as Pascaline has alluded to. So I will show how our social worlds have continued to fail us by sustaining unsafe communities and failing to build secure and respective environments. And I'll also touch on the why and what we can do to remedy these appalling violent acts. I must hasten to mention that violence in this modern capitalist, gender and racialized modern world does not only affect humans, but also our environment through excessive capitalist extractive behaviors and the degradation of our environment through excessive cutting of our forests and pollution, which all harm our environment. Violent acts are also targeted at animal species through senseless poaching, which affects our ecosystem, as well as predatory sexual behaviors as seen in unending cases of bestiality. Of course, the most pervasive form of violence targets the human species and comes in a myriad of ways. It could be physical, emotional, economic, deprivation, school or workplace related sexual abuse, exploitation, harm, and bullying, among other places such as the family and even religious places. We are talking about all this despite the 2 years since the United Nations General Assembly adopted the Declaration on the Elimination of Violence Against Women, which was in 1993. So despite this long period of advocacy, policy reforms, legal reforms, strategies, programmatic interventions, these forms of violence that I've alluded to earlier remains pervasive worldwide. From the Congo, DRC to Kosovo. Unfortunately, when we look at it from the gendered lens, women's bodies continue to be used as weapons of war. We have seen and heard stories of opposing military forces raping women or forcing their male relatives to rape them while other family members watch. For example, a son would be forced to rape his mother in the presence of the father, the young sisters, and the young brothers, in a bid to just humiliate the opposing forces and bring them to conformity. From the USA to South Korea to South Africa, we hear of racialized killings of Black or white people. The police brutality that led to the death of George Floyd still rings large in our ears. Stories of Breonna Taylor and other Black Americans who suffered from the hands of the legal regime, which is supposed to protect them. We talk about the historic wars between Israel and Palestine or Russia and Ukraine. Women and children remain the most violent by virtue of patriarchy. Most women, particularly those that are married, they cannot decide to move or run, leave their homes without waiting to get the permission from a male figure, either a husband, a father, an uncle, or the brother, and to show them the direction where they should go, whether they should go seek shelter in a refugee camp or go to any other place that is deemed safe. So in that space of waiting for authority figures, patriarchal authority figures, they are caught in the crossfire and they die in masses. Even if we say, let's run, women by virtue and children by virtue of their physical makeup, their physicality, our speed is normally not as good as that of men. Hence, we are killed in numbers. Femicide, the killing of women or girls on account of their gender, particularly by a male figure in Brazil and other Latin American contexts. We talk about infanticides the killing of infants to honor killings in some Asian contexts, stories of homicide, where we hear of stories of elderly women, particularly women that have a bit of money, pensioners, being killed by their partners. This can go both ways. You know, violence is not only a women's issue. We need to understand that from the onset. It affects also men. So it is gendered in its nature. Even some wives connive with other people to kill their husbands for their insurance money. These are stories that we hear on media documentaries, particularly in contexts like the USA. Homophobic violence, lynching and killing of non-conforming people, to those that fail to conform to the heterosexual norm, is also widespread. The most vulnerable are people living with disabilities, particularly women and girls are more vulnerable to sexual abuse. The killing of people living with albinism for their body parts and other ritualistic murders, commonplace in contexts like Zambia and Tanzania. You know, infanticide, intentional killing of young children, often those that are less than 1 year, because maybe parents want a boy child, or perhaps depression postponed by a mother, or things like that. Genital mutilation or cutting of young girls, these are also pervasive. Then we talk about violent rape due to uncontrolled use of sexual enhancers. These are things that we don't talk about, and we kind of mask them, silence them. The use of aphrodisiacs, particularly in African countries, contexts, these are sex boosters. If those men fail to find their partner, or their partner refuses to engage in a sexual relationship with them, we see an escalation of rape targeting, actually incestuous rape that targets actually people within their same family. They would go rape their grandmothers, rape their young sisters, rape their sisters. These things are happening in our communities despite these legal provisions. So all these violent acts are linked to gendered power relations or imbalance, such as the pervasive ideals of misogyny, masculine identities, and domineering acts, including sexual manipulative trickeries, you know. And we don't just end there. Even many young boys, we see many young boys who think sexual manipulation and sexually abusing girls, they view it as a sign of male power or virility. Yet they do not know that they are also engaging in self-harm, as they have these multiple girls whom they think they are fixing by sleeping with them. They don't know that actually they are putting themselves in the path of self-harm, because they're exposing themselves to contraction of diseases such as HIV and AIDS. Poverty is something that we don't need to mask. The silence over poverty should be amplified by all of us as one of the drivers of violence, particularly sexual abuse and exploitation of young girls who are engaging now in sex for money. Elderly men are taking advantage of them. We need to talk about these things. The same poverty also can be attributed to men, you know, homicide, so to say, because we are seeing an increase in case of homes being robbed, armed robbers, you know, and the list is endless. Unfortunately, even what we used to perceive in the past as our sanctuaries for safeguarding, the churches, the mosques, they are no longer safe places. It is not uncommon to get, particularly in a context like Zambia, to get to hear, to have some breaking news of a pastor having raped a child or a girl child, a female in a church. A pastor sleeping with somebody's wife because this person is vulnerable. They are looking to become pregnant. They can't have children, and they use their manipulative tactics actually to coerce these women into having sexual relationship with them in a violent manner that actually is intrusive to their privacy and the like. Even our homes that were used to be called safe havens are now mad with breaking news of incest. A girl child in particular is no longer safe. Recently, just 2 weeks ago, breaking news in Zambia came out. An orphanage, it has also penetrated even the orphanages. The young people are running to these orphanages for safety and safeguarding. Unfortunately, the owners of these orphanages are now abusing these young girls. So even despite media censorship, as I alluded to earlier, with regards issues of same-sex relationships and homophobia, in a context like Zambia, this is criminalized, but we still find traces of breaking news regarding young boys in boarding schools being sodomized by other boys, including in some day schools. We see this happening in ablution blocks, which is very, very unfortunate. So there's literally no safe place to run to for our young people, for our women, and the like. And as Dr. Renuka Thakore mentioned earlier on, cyberbullying is another place that we can talk about. We talk about intimate partner violence, so pervasive, and is shrouded, unfortunately, in a culture of silence. So we see the normalization of heterosexual marriages through the work of various social institutions, the church, the family, education, the law, and our invented culture. And because when violence happens in an intimate partner relationship, whether in a home or in just a girl-boy relationship, there's a lot of silence that needs to be broken. And the silence is sustained due to norms or behaviors or attitudes that shame, blame the victim. As a result, we are now seeing even murders happening in intimate partner relationships. Then let me just run through quickly. Even in the traditional setups, you know, when families or maybe a young couple are unable to have children, or they're having marital disputes, sometimes they would run to traditional healers, okay, to go and seek remedy for their marital issues, whether it's having children. What is happening is that actually there, women again are becoming victims of abuse from those traditional healers who take advantage of their vulnerability. Thankfully, in most African contexts, Zambia included, we have seen that actually the church now is condemning violence, and unlike in the past, it is no longer something that is carpeted or business as usual. For example, the Daily Mail of Zambia reported that an Anglican bishop, Albert Chama, urged the church to allow couples who engage in intimate partner violence to divorce if all measures that includes counseling have failed. As he rightly put it, he would rather see his daughter, he would rather receive a divorced daughter than receive his daughter in a casket in church. We are also happy in a context like Zambia, where heteronormativity is being broken, like in normalizing marriage. When somebody gets married, until death do us part. The Catholic Church is now issuing a decree or annulling the marriages and giving divorce certificates when they realize that it's better to have two people that are alive than receive one in a casket and another one in prison. So violence just actually is everywhere. In Michel Foucault's word, it's everywhere in every sector of society. Even if we go to the political arena, violence is there. Women cannot even participate in politics because of fear of violence. Of course, we have all these good legal regimes and policy framework. Like in Zambia, we have the Anti-GBV Act, including the Education Act, both for 2011, prohibits violence. We have had campaigns, programmatic campaigns like to end child marriages. But even with these programs, we have one-stop village shops, We have the he for she campaigns, all these advocating to end violence, but still there's something that we are missing, and we need to start looking deeper. We need to look at it from a more complex way. One of the things that I've noted why violence persists, in as much as we have all these good international, regional, continental, and national policies and legal frameworks, these remain paper tigers. I call them paper tigers because we have very weak justice systems, which are underfunded, under-resourced in terms of human resource. They are mainly centered, even when we have like fast track courts to deal with cases of violence in contexts like Zambia, these are mainly dotted in urban areas, producing that rural-urban division, favoring people in urban areas than rural areas. Of course, gender power relations or imbalances are deep-seated in most cases. The normalization of the culture of silence, we need to deal with this one to its core. I think it's the most pervasive because of fear of shame, blame, and stigma. And it is now going to be worse in contexts like Zambia, the United States, where we are seeing actually that now even the school curriculum now will be heavily censored. People talk about sexual rights are being phased out from a lot of documents. So this shrouding in a culture of silence will continue to, or will actually see an escalation of violence. In conclusion, what should we do? The bigger thing is we need to look at the ways that we can have intervention policy, programmatic, legal. Focus now should be on breaking the culture or normalization of silence that perpetuate violence in its different forms. We also need policy intervention that, actually we need a critique of policy interventions that that have reduced space for engaging in open talks about sexual rights, because sexual rights are linked to consent, issues of consent, issues of children learning from the an early age or a very young age how to maintain the boundary, which body parts they should consider as a no-go area for other people, and which adults they need to confide in. That we need those kind of curriculum that will teach children to identify people that they can point at or they can run to, whether it's uncles, aunties, teachers, the trusted adults, because it's not every adult that can be trusted. Curriculum policies, we need a lot of talk. We need to cause good trouble, good noise that critique curriculum policies that actually undoing the works that we started in Beijing in 1985 of silencing sexual rights, issues to talk about sexual rights. Because these are for closing the talk and the ability, the agency for young people, women, and vulnerable populations to talk about violence as we know it today. Gender violence, as I close, is indeed a human rights and developmental issue that impinges on public health, education, workplace relations, social relations across the globe, and particularly in the African context and Zambia, to be more specific. It leads to unsafe sexual practices, HIV infection, which is high, and the face of young people. It's many young people that are at higher risk, with its offshoots, which are early pregnancies, marriages, school dropouts, mental health, and premature death. The above concerns, if we don't talk about them in solidarity and as a collective, it threatens the achievement of gender parity. Particularly when we talk about us that are in the education sector, it may affect SDG 4 as well as 5. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Really, your topics makes me think that the word is a small village, because the context in Zambia, it's look like we are talking about Cameroon with the same issues, the same human rights issue, the same violence issues. So thank you very much. And I hope that civil societies really work together to put in place some policies, advocate together, because it's not easy. We face some barriers with politics, and we hope that that will change in the future. Okay, now we'll continue our discussion with Wendy Ume from Nigeria. She holds a degree in business administration and management, and she is a director of Wenabel Montessori School. She has led some group initiative combating gender equality, promoting the inclusive of women and girls in the rural communities, and advocates for SDG with in specialized in gender equality and zero hunger from underprivileged children. And about the topic of today, she thinks that building a secure and respectful environment is a necessity for sustainable growth, and we can achieve this through strong leadership by promoting respect and inclusivity. So welcome, Wendy, and your amazing work in the field is very inspiring. So if you're available, the floor is yours, Wendy.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome, Wendy.
Thank you. Okay, I'm Wendy. I'm from Nigeria. I'm the director of Wenabel Montessori School. The mission is to nurture young minds and underprivileged children. I also advocate for gender equality. Okay, now, building a secure and respectful environment is a necessity for sustainable growth. We can achieve this through strong leadership, clear policies, security measures, and support systems. In these days, a lot is happening. In Nigeria, there's a lot of children that involve themselves in hard drugs, fraud. They even lure their friends too. So we need to stand up. We need to stand on our feet to catch them young. Because I believe that when you catch them young, we'll have a better future. The future will be safer. A lot of them, what they're seeing from their parents, they're also practicalizing it. There's this girl, she stays with her uncle because she lost her parents. But the uncle's son took advantage of her by abusing her sexually. But the girl cannot speak up until the case came to us. The girl was suffering, dying, because the boy threatens her that if she speaks up, she is going to bully her and she is going to lie on her head that they will throw her out from the house. So she does not know what to say. But thank God today, she's free. There's a lot of them. Another one that lure her friend, took the friend to a guy that abused him sexually. The boy is just 13 years old. So there's a lot of things happening. We need to stand. We need to fight for them. We need to bring out some strategies that we will use to train them up so that they will understand what is happening, so that they will understand that their future is at stake. We need to form a supporting system for these victims, ensure access to safe reporting channels in workplace, communities, and schools. Develop international network for psychological support. We need to promote a culture of peace, encourage dialogue between different cultures and backgrounds. Because some of them, they discriminate because maybe they are not from the same culture or from the same background, they bully them. We need to we need to show kindness and respect and respect in a professional way. We need to speak up, report violence. If you and I can stand up and report every violence that we see or we notice, regardless of the country or culture or the age, I believe that we can build a better future. We need to support all these victims because sometimes some people will see, but because of the fear of if I speak out, maybe they will come after me. Those bad boys will come after me or they will injure me. So with that, they will keep quiet. They will not talk. So we need to advocate strong, very strong protection, protect them, and promote dialogue rather than being aggressive or aggression. We need to provide mental health for them. Then clear policies, enforce consequences for any violation to ensure accountability. Security measures, conduct regular security audits to identify potential risks and areas of improvement. We need to encourage active participation in task forces to address security and respect. We need to create support systems for individuals facing all these challenges. Establish an emergency response team to handle those kind of cases. Because some of them, sometimes they'll be in danger, but no help at that moment for them to speak up. Another one, we need to partner with some organization for legal and psychological support when needed. To achieve this higher productivity, motivation, and satisfaction in workplace, because all these things, it can happen in schools, communities, workplace, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. We can bring out some strategies to foster active engagement. To be active, it requires motivation, accessibility, and awareness. We need to create awareness always. Spread information through posters. Sometimes, maybe we cannot speak up. We can write it. We can send it through magazines. We can send it through newspapers so that the communication field will post it for them to encourage some people. We can send it through emails or some gatherings. Sometimes we conduct regular seminars and workshops on security and security so that those young ones, we encourage them to do away from those violence or to make the community to be a safer place to stay. Sometimes we reward the participants so that we can encourage others to bring out more information, to speak up, to stand up, to stand up. So it is our responsibility to participate actively in a task force for security and respect. Let us all commit to being active contributors to a safer and more respectful environment. You and I can start the changes. You and I can make a change for a better world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wendy. I see that you have shared your presentation with a lot of passion and emotion because you feel it deeply on you, like a very, very experience that you face every day when you walk in the field. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Wendy. So now we welcome Elizaberth Mwaba from Zambia. She's our next speaker for this session. She is a medical physicist and dedicated leader, passionate about empowering others to recognize and develop their leadership strengths. Good afternoon, Elizaberth. Elizaberth, I think I pronounced well.
Good afternoon. Yes.
Please, can you speak Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the floor
Are you
is
able to
yours.
hear
Thank
me?
you. Yes, you are audible. I think
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let me try to share my screen. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am super excited to be here on the virtual international conference. I would like to appreciate Ma'am Mahin for giving us this opportunity to just voice out and speak towards zero violence. My presentation today is focused on building secure and respectful environment. So this is simply the outline that I'm going to follow. It's going to be brief and to the point, and I hope you'll be able to follow along. So violence varies enormously. We need to understand, explain, and theorize violence with a view to ultimately understanding it. I think there's something wrong with my, okay. So before we can go on and talk about zero violence, we really need to understand what is violence. Violence in simple terms refers to the intentional use of physical force, power, or coercion to harm, injure, or abuse another person, group, or community. So when we say zero violence, we're saying zero to none of that, zero to the harm, zero to the force being used so that you do something that is against what you believe in, or force that ultimately leads to injuries and whatnot. So we're saying we don't want that in the next 3 years, 5 years, in 2030, we don't want to see violence anymore. So zero violence is a concept that aims to eliminate all forms of violence globally. So we have different types of violence. There's physical violence. So this kind of violence is subjected or directed to your body. It's bodily harm, where somebody can hit you, punch you, kick you, and use a weapon like a gun just to injure you. And then we also have emotional violence or psychological violence. So it comes in the form of threats, intimidation, harassment, bullying, or manipulation that can cause emotional harm. A lot of people, they do not understand that what they're facing is actually violence. So we need people to understand the kind of violence and the forms of violence. Sexual violence. I think the speakers before me have spoken about sexual violence. Sexual violence is when you are exposed to or you are made to face non-consensual sexual interaction. You have to understand that if you don't consent to it, it is violence. It is sexual violence. In Zambia, currently, we're facing a number of cases that have to do with pedophilia. Children are being subjected to sexual violence because people believe when they visit these traditional doctors, they're told you only see wealth when you sleep with a child or you have carnal knowledge with a child who's under the age of 5. So it's widespread. It's going on in my country at this moment, even as we speak. And according to statistics, we know that in every 25 minutes, a woman somewhere in the world is being sexually abused, is being raped. We need to voice out about such issues. People need to be educated. And I believe that if we are trying to eliminate these forms of violence or these types of violence, we need to nip it from the bud. We need to remove it from the very roots. We need to create a future or a generation of children that do not know what violence looks like. Because when children are exposed to a certain kind of violence, they begin to normalize it. Take, for instance, a son who's in a house where the father beats the mother. The son will see it as a normal occurrence. he will believe that women are meant to be beaten. If you're to be a man, you have to beat a woman. So they'll believe that that gender-based violence is normal. So we have to now start speaking to the younger generation. The generation that we have now has experienced so much trauma. They have PTSD, their mental health is not okay, that they can't heal from that. So let's also now look at the oncoming generation. This generation has seen too much violence, but let's work with our children. Let's work with the generation that's coming. In the next 10 years, they'll be the adults, they'll be the youths, they'll be the decision makers. Let's work with them so that we can eradicate and get rid of violence completely. There are forms of violence. I want us to familiarize ourselves with the forms of violence so that we don't have people experiencing violence and being quiet about it because society tells them that they're supposed to be quiet. Or when a woman is experiencing gender-based violence in her house, the family tells her you have to be strong. That's what marriage is about. As the previous speaker spoke, she said that it is okay for a woman to go back home if she experiences gender-based violence in her house from her husband. It's okay for her to leave. Let us not romanticize violence and say it's part of marriage. So women, children, young boys, they need to be taught what violence looks like and what is not supposed to be done, because they're being exposed to these vices. And if we keep being quiet about it, the children will continue the vice even in the next 30 to 10 years, something we've been trying to get rid of. So intimate partner violence. So almost globally, almost 1 in 3 women has experienced violence, physical and or sexual violence, at least once in their life, perpetrated by their current or maybe former intimate partners. They don't understand, think it's normal. We had an occurrence where a lady in Zambia was saying, my boyfriend beats me. And that's okay, that's part of a relationship. She doesn't understand that that is actually gender-based violence. She thinks gender-based violence is when you are married and you're being beaten and whatnot. That's what it applies to. But when you're in a relationship, you have to be strong. Until when you get into marriage, that's when you can say it's gender-based violence. But that's not the actual case. So 1 in 3 women has experienced this type of violence. If we do a survey on the people on this score, you find that some women have experienced intimate partner violence. Gun violence. When we talk about gun violence, it leads me to the United States, because 46% of the civilians in the United States hold the world's civilian guns. So you understand that there's a lot of gun violence there because civilians are now in possession of guns. That's why you hear the news where there's shooting in high schools, children are killing each other, a young boy has a gun and murdered the classmates and whatnot. Why? That's the kind of violence that they have there. So there's no one size fits all solution. We have to look at the region that we're in and the kind of violence that we're facing. And you see from the kind of violence that we're experiencing that this will continue. So we have to educate the oncoming generation. So if you're in the United States, you understand that there's a prevalence of gun violence. If you're in Zambia, you understand that there's a prevalence of sexual violence, there's defilement and pedophilia. If we talk about terrorism, in 2008 to 2017, I think between 2002 and 2019, there were 2,000 deaths plus from terrorism alone. That's the kind of violence that we need to get rid of. There's violence against women, violence against children. There's so much that is going on. And if we look at the global perspective, violence really just draws us back. It limits development, economic development, it limits infrastructure development. Why? Because you're trying to handle cases that would have otherwise led to other focus on other things. So let's talk about gun violence. You find that civilians are now shooting shops, infrastructure is being destroyed and whatnot. So instead of focusing on other areas of development, you're now being drawn back, and then you have to now start sorting out the very same thing that you already built and you already worked on. So violence really just draws us back, and we really need to work on it. The importance of zero violence. It enhances mental health and physical well-being. If we work with the oncoming generation, we really just teach them and show them that this is not right and it should not be done and should not be normalized, we'll have a generation of young people that have got a healthy, they have good mental health and good physical well-being. They do not understand how violence looks like or what violence looks like. What they believe in is in a peaceful environment. It builds community trust and social cohesion. Two countries can work together without disputes, without wars. Why? Because they trust each other and they do not believe in violence. They don't stand on violence. They do not believe in that. They do not see it. They don't even consider it as a possibility. So we'll see economic development from just the absence of violence itself. It reduces economic and social costs. Like I mentioned before, violence really just draws us back. So instead of focusing on other economic matters, in Zambia now we're focusing on these defilement cases. We're trying to make sure that they give us more stringent laws so that these perpetrators, the pedophiles, face very, very intense punishments so that other people do not even consider doing it or abusing young children. It supports long-term sustainable development. So if we look at sustainable development, I'll talk about the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So there's goal number 5, target 5.2, which talks about eliminating all forms of violence against children and women. It is a gendered target. And then we have a non-gendered target, which is the goal 16, which says significantly reduce all forms of violence. So this one is not limited to only women and girls, but also young men, little boys who are being sodomized. It's also talking about other forms of violence. So we're trying to eliminate that. When violence is eliminated, it is very, very easy for us to achieve Agenda 2030. Because in 2030, we're believing we're going to eradicate all forms of poverty. We're believing in good health, free education for all, but that would be impossible if we keep having wars. There's violence here and there. We're destroying infrastructure, bringing back the economy. So we'll continue having poor people and will not be able to achieve the goals that we have set. So what are the strategies that we can use in order for us to build secure and respectful environment? So like I mentioned before, we need to educate the next generation. Prevention programs. We must educate ourselves and others about non-violent communication and conflict resolution. The young ones are seeing it from the adults. They're seeing it from leaders, country leaders, presidents. They do not know how to communicate with each other. They do not know how to resolve conflicts, and they end up, resorting to wars and now killing and implicating young children. We're seeing that happening in Congo because people have got, personal vendettas. They want to get them to loot minerals. They want to get whatnot. They end up implicating the future of the next generation. So we have children dying, families are being destroyed, infrastructure is being destroyed. It's taking the economy backwards. So we need to educate our people. We need to educate the children. Strengthening policies and enforcement. Policy and laws must protect the most vulnerable. I want to implore and I want to advise everyone on the holistic part in these policy changes when they're happening in our countries. If we are involved, to be able to voice out. Never think that your opinion doesn't matter or you don't know much. If you need somebody to transcribe what's been written in the Constitution or what's been amended in the Constitution, go to a friend, go to a colleague, go to somebody who's an expert in it. Let them explain to you in layman terms so that you're able to say what you really want. Let's get involved. It's not for the higher up. It's not for the government officials. It's for us. When the policy changes are happening, let's take keen interest and let's be very much involved. Laws must protect the most vulnerable women, children, and the marginalized communities. There's a speaker who was talking about the LGBTQ community. We need to be involved so that all of those people are protected. Because we find people are killing these people who identify differently, but that's not supposed to be the case. So we need to strengthen policies and enforcement, and we need to be informed and involved, as mentioned. But laws alone are not enough. We need accountability. If a child is bullied in school, what systems exist to ensure they are safe? So we need to also set up systems as a country. So first of all, we need to identify the kind of violence that is prevalent. The solutions I can offer might work for the Zambian context, but not for the Pakistani context or the UK context. Why? Because the kind of violence that is prevalent in your area will need a more strategic and more specific approach. It's not a one-size-fits-all. You need to assess, and then you need to mobilize and work with other people so that we get rid of this vice. Otherwise, when when we don't have a free and peaceful environment, there will never be zero violence. We'll keep on seeing violence, and our children will keep experiencing it, and that's not what we want. We need to create safe spaces, community engagement. If somebody doesn't feel safe to express themselves, they will not open up. Violence often thrives in silence. It is now that people are coming out in my country and they're saying, no, I was raped and whatnot, that other people also are finding the courage to say, I was also raped by my biological father. I was also raped by my uncle. This neighbor did this to me. That's when people are coming, they feel, oh, there's now a safe space for us to express ourselves, won't be criticized, won't be judged based off maybe what we were wearing and whatnot. So this is why open dialogue is critical. When people feel safe to report abuse, seek help, or mediate conflicts, we break the cycle of violence. And finally, support services and social media engagement. Let us use a social media platform to advocate against these vices. We really need to work with, we need to collaborate and work together, especially if we are women. Our young girls are growing up. We don't want them to face the same things we have been facing. We don't want them to find themselves in a statistic as one of the 3 women who experience sexual abuse. Let us teach them how to recognize it, how to speak out, and how to go to the right places and report such kinds of situations. To achieve zero violence is not just the responsibility of the government or law enforcement, as I stated earlier, or Mama Hin Amjad, just because she has an organization, so you leave it for her. It is also our responsibility. It starts from our homes. Let us teach our sons what's not normal. Let us also teach our daughters what's not normal, so that when they grow up, they know how to express themselves. And the young men, they don't think that expressing their anger on a woman is the right thing. So violence is a disease that can be cured by compassion, understanding, and love. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I end my presentation here.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Wendy. Very, very nice presentation. So what I can keep on our mind is that prevention, policy and legislation, community engagement, support services are the one of solutions to achieve zero concepts. Also think about kindness. Now, as we used to say, we keep the best for the end. We will welcome Petrina Montrose from United Kingdom. We will share their insight on trafficking and gender-based violence, driving by inequality, economic hardship, and systemic vulnerabilities, and any other point. Petrina is a criminal justice mentor and social justice advocate. She is a survivor, and she used her experience to empower others and challenge ineffective policies that fail to protect victims. Welcome, dear Petrina. Thank you for accepting our invitation to share your expertise and your personal experience. So if you are ready, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Hi, hello everybody. It's an absolute honor and pleasure to be here. I just need to share my screen, you're all in the way, so I can't actually find, so bear with me, if you may. Yeah, sorry, I don't know how to move you all out the way. So, yes, hang on, let me just try again. I can get to...
What do you see on screen, Petrina?
Yeah, I can't seem to. Your faces are at the bottom, so I can't seem to know how to move. My technical skills are so bad. Please forgive me. So, but I don't know how to move all the gallery is here at the bottom, so I don't know how to move you out the way so I can share my screen. So that's what the issue is. So yeah, I need to move everyone that I can't, I don't know how to do it. I'm so sorry. If anyone could give some tips, I'd be so greatly appreciative.
Can you
So
drag the gallery
hang on,
up?
I see I can get it if I go really quickly. So if I honestly, this always happens to me. It's always me. So it will be worth it. I'm going just bear with me, and I can just yeah, it's because the gallery comes at the bottom, so I can't move it out the way. So hang on, let me see if I can hide. Hang on. I did it. Okay. Share. 1 second. You have to. Oh my goodness. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
You can? Okay, I'm really sorry about that, but we did it. We got there. And this is the world of survivors is very like this, and I will talk about that later. Hi. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you, Mahim, very much for giving me this opportunity to talk. And to all the esteemed colleagues and the wonderful, wonderful speakers, I'm humbled, and your presentations were outstanding. Right, deep breath. So, welcome. My name is Petrina. I'm a survivor, as you may know, of being sex trafficked as a minor. I was forced into prostitution from a very young age. I've educated myself now to beginning to start my doctorate and to be studying to be a forensic psychologist. I've mentored for 6-7 years in the criminal justice system with high risk, medium risk service users. And my passion is about rehabilitation. I'm a mother of 6 children. So, you know, it's been a very arduous journey to reclaim my sense of self, but I'm here today to talk about zero violence, building secure and respectful environments, and bringing a little bit more of a nuanced perspective to it from my lived experience. But let's begin. So the Secretary General of the United Nations in 2018 acknowledges violence against women as a global epidemic and categorically characterizing it as perhaps the most shameful of human rights. So I've introduced myself. I won't tell you anything more. So, oh, wow, sorry. Can you see that? Right. So the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime has reported that 25% of prosecuted cases involve survivors of trafficking who have faced various forms of gender-based violence before their trafficking. Now, this data highlights the significant link between sex trafficking and other types of violence against women and girls. Sorry. Globally, it is estimated that between 10% and 53% of women have encountered intimate partner violence. According to the World Health Organization, 30% reported experiences of physical or sexual violence inflicted by their partners. Women and girls are trafficked for sexual economic exploitation, including prostitution, pornography, forced labor, and forced marriage, or the sale of brides. Online trafficking presents heightened challenges for detection and constitutes a significant barrier to dismantling the network of human trafficking. The consequences are devastating and present an intergenerational context of violence and exclusion. And in this case, I'm not excluding men, but girls are disproportionately affected and are often, as all speakers have mentioned, are silenced. Now, the criminalization of victims for their sexual exploitation occurs while their trafficking status remains undisclosed. Stemming from a fear of incrimination by their traffickers, most women are unaware that they are being trafficked. This is a key point, and due to the brevity of this presentation, I haven't got time to go into depth, but I just wanted to draw your attention. It's a key point. Most women are unaware that they're being trafficked. Many traffickers and sexual predators rely on psychological coercion rather than physical force. So there's a lot of misconceptions that need to be debunked around what this dynamic and actually what the emotional context of this kind of dynamic between the trauma bonds that happen between a trafficker and a woman or a predator that's being subjected to sexual violence. Understanding of a trauma-informed approach is essential, and that recognizes trauma bonding, and the relationship between a victim and their trafficker or their perpetrator is crucial to acknowledge by first responders. So I don't know if you can see there, I've just reiterated that again, but there is a systemic disbelief and victim blaming that hinders justice. A lot of my research has been done on this. I conducted research with the police and the general public, and I looked at the psychological construct of victim blame, and I used prostitution and my own lived experiences of just prostituted claims of rape and sexual violence largely go unbelieved. And I also looked at police being unable to identify sex trafficking victims. So it was I also used a lot of psychometric measures, and it was a very interesting findings, but it really does serve to show that survivors are often very unaware they're being trafficked, and the police and law enforcement do not believe women's claims of rape. So the issues of gender-based violence and harmful gender practices, combined with the increased male demand for sexual services and the heightened vulnerabilities of women and girls worldwide, significantly contribute to the trafficking of minors for sexual exploitation. These factors are essential for understanding the modus operandi of traffickers and perpetrators of sexual violence, including buyers, sellers, and intermediaries. They highlight the necessity for survivors and victims and an ethical inclusion and safe participation of people with lived experience to be able to sort of understand the intricacy and the complexity of these underlying factors. So drawing from my experience as a woman and a survivor of child sex trafficking, I just want to stop there 1 second, because it takes not just a lot of courage and authenticity to speak, it's also really important to understand how difficult it is to really ever reclaim your life. I don't think you can. You have to really try your best to feel that you can be part of society again. And when I had my virginity was sold and I was forced into prostitution, so I advocate where I stayed for a long time, and I advocate against human trafficking in my role as a survivor leader, and I advocate for ethical survivor leadership. That means that I adhere to a very high code of professional conduct. I am with the British Psychological Society. I had a lot of therapy. I've had a lot of training in trauma. There's a lot of emphasis has to go on safe and ethical survivor inclusion, which is not tokenistic. So it's about how my perspective, not as an academic, not as a potential, what all these labels are attached to me, actually as a woman that has a real first-hand lived experience of living this life that everybody's trying to eradicate. So this responsibility is central to my mission, and I have endured systemic discrimination while living on the edges of society or in the margins for over 15 years. And women like myself have carried a very heavy burden. It reflects the steep price of the unlived life, things that we cannot get back, moments that I will never have, experiences that were denied, things that we take for granted, things that I just will never really know. So, but it's strengthened. I'm not here to victimize myself. I'm here to empower others to believe that change is possible. And for too long, survivors of trafficking have lived among us and often hidden in plain sight, holding survivors responsible. And that again, think about that. You would be so surprised and amazed about how many people around you are potentially severely affected by gender-based violence. So holding survivors responsible for defining their recovery paths under the guise of well-being is an area that I'm very passionate about, because it fails to address the external factors that can worsen their mental health. For instance, research suggests, and I'm quoting, that the narrative of personal responsibility and agency places the onus of recovery and healing on women who have experienced violence. And if they do not succeed, which some women may never do, they are also held accountable for that outcome. So there remains a critical need for well-being initiatives if we want to gender a zero violence and building secure and respectful environments. We have to look at the well-being of survivors. We have to look at their rehabilitation. We are very able to intellectualize and see and read the data, but actually we have to really be able to rehabilitate women. And I have spent a long time rehabilitating people, and it is a hard work. You know, you have to really fight and advocate and work and have patience and kindness and work and build rapport and trust. And you have to be so committed to this cause to make a difference. So these factors include, I think, forms of sexism that contribute to the disbelief of survivors and the stigma that is pervasive, that leaves them feeling ostracized within their own communities. Now, on a micro level, survivors in educational settings worldwide often report feeling dismissed, invalidated, and unsupported by various organizations, social institutions, and cultural groups. On a macro level, initiatives to provide survivors with interpersonal support, structural justice, and political accountability are frequently underfunded, or they're deprioritized globally. The prevailing discourse surrounding the well-being of survivors often mistakenly places, I have to say it again, sole responsibility on the individuals affected, emphasizing the need for lifestyle changes and self-care strategies. And whereas these are invaluable, we have to really understand how trauma manifests itself, primarily also on a neurobiological level, you know, of what happens of trauma in its many different guises, and how we collectively can orientate a person to a safe space. If we want to disclose and help and support and hold perpetrators accountable, which there seems to be there seems to be total impunity, then we have to be able to develop rapports, and we have to be able to develop safe spaces, trust, and we have to be, to a very high level, trauma informed. So the goal is to prevent human trafficking, gender-based violence, which can only be achieved by ending the impunity among all actors involved in the trafficking chain. We also need to recognize the global terminology surrounding demand, and this is an area that I'm particularly very passionate about. The trafficker trafficked me, a woman. Women trafficked me, not men, women. And that was the most difficult thing for me to come to terms with when I was in my healing, when I was going through a lot of therapy, is I could rationalize men because of all the beliefs and internalization and the patriarchal society, but I couldn't with women because I trusted them. And that was very difficult to come to terms with. And we also have to look at recruiters, employers, and owners of clubs or hotels where victims are publicly exposed or sexually exploited. How many people do you think who saw me as a child with these men in clubs, in places, in public? Nobody did anything. You know, I went to the doctor, all these, but nobody helped. You know, nobody was able to recognize the unseen signs, the silent cries of help. They weren't able to recognize. So we need to look at, we need to hold people publicly exposed to we need to hold these people accountable, basically. Is that basically when we need to, all individuals involved in the trafficking chain, they are not innocent bystanders who bear no accountability. Therefore, they have no defense to say, I didn't know. They did know. You know, many people knew with me, and I wasn't even aware I was being trafficked. But I tried so often to get help, and it wasn't available. So through this lens, we must adhere to a zero tolerance policy regarding the bystander effect. The objective is to prevent and raise awareness among stakeholders, law enforcement agencies, and financial institutions to enhance preventative measures. In my opinion, the principle of follow the money is fundamental in this context of combating human trafficking through red flag indicators, such as a young girl depositing large amounts of money or needing help to open a bank account, or, you know, all these areas are areas which I know there's a lot now emphasis put on money laundering, but it's important to raise awareness of it. So prevention is also critical for prosecution. And in my experiences, effective preventative measures mean addressing the root causes of vulnerability, such as poverty, lack of education, and limited economic opportunities. You know, I was in the position I was in because I was not consenting. My poverty was being bought. My lack of education was being bought. My lack of economic opportunities was being bought. You know, my circumstances, which is what created me to be in the position that I was. Now, this initiative requires the active involvement of survivors and victims of gender-based violence across all sectors to advocate for human rights-based, victim and survivor-centered, trauma-informed approaches. Trafficking and gender-based violence are driven by inequality, economic hardship, and systemic vulnerabilities. Addressing these issues necessitates policy reforms and a unified commitment to accelerate action. We need to strengthen our legal frameworks. We need to expand victim support services. We need to have enhanced cooperation with law enforcement, involve civil society. That it's not just collectively, it's individually what we can do. We need to establish safe houses with the objectives that they really are safe houses where women can take refuge and find sanctuary from violence. We need to prove in access to rehabilitative services, and we need to prioritize survivor-centered and trauma-informed approach. Now, survivors possess unrivaled experiential knowledge and insights into the methodologies and tactics employed by traffickers, thereby offering a nuanced understanding of the specific. Wow, I don't know if I'm catching up with my slides, so excuse me. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Sorry, you'll get used to me. I'm very sorry. So trafficking and gender-based violence. Oh, sorry, I don't know what I did there. Okay. So survivors possess unrivaled experiential knowledge and insights into the methodologies and tactics employed by traffickers, thereby offering a nuanced understanding of the specific circumstances encountered by victims and survivors, as well as the unique risks they face. Moreover, it is essential to actively involve men and boys as allies and advocates and agents of change to confront and challenge systemic sexism effectively and the serious gender crime that continues to spread and affect boys and girls differently. The criminalization of victim services, along with the prohibition of purchasing sexual services from individuals who solicit, obtain, or exploit, necessitates, as I say again, accountability. Any person who requests or receives the services of a victim of sexual exploitation should be held accountable. Ending trafficking and ending gender-based violence requires limiting the impunity of all actors in the trafficking chain. We face a crucial issue regarding the protection of women and girls affected by gender-based violence. And we've all said it here today. Is anyone listening? No individual possesses the capacity to confront this scourge upon humanity in isolation. A collective and cooperative endeavor is imperative to address the fundamental causes and uphold all women and girls' rights, equality, and empowerment, ensuring survivors occupy leadership positions and serve as peer influencers, mentors, and trailblazers in effecting change is essential. And although I have not had the opportunity for formal education, I committed to 14 years to learning the arduous journey of reclaiming my sense of self while nurturing and raising a family of 6 children. Now, believe me, it was harder to educate myself, reintegrate myself into society than it was to live in the margins. It was the most difficult thing to do, to take myself from 0 education, 0 reading skills, 0 everything, and to create where I am now. It took most people, I think it takes 4 years, a degree and a master's. It took me 14 and a half years. I never gave up because I often ask myself, what is the alternative? And sexual servitude was not my destiny in life. I wanted to be someone, so therefore I was determined to do it. So people with lived experience, they struggle to engage in society and contribute economically. And I was actually at a conference not long ago, and this conference, I really liked it, with a very respected survivor leader who's very eminent in this area. And she actually said something very interesting. She said, if we want to have people with lived experience, if we want to have survivors, and we need to have survivors in all stakeholders, as we've discussed, then we have to also be able to understand that we can help. So as you can see today, I have some technology issues, but there's no way I can fill in all these gaps to be totally proficient at everything. But what we can do, we can know if we have somebody that has the courage to be authentic and say, look, this is where I am, and I've educated myself, and I'm back here, and I'm in the workforce, and I'm part of our community, or I'm a leader. When you see them struggling with something, you could say, can I help you? You have no idea. It makes such a huge difference. And one of the reasons why I decided to come out and be so honest about who I am, which has only been a couple of years, is because when I realized that it's so freeing and liberating, to be just genuine and authentic, and yet to know that I can help so many people, because I've been there. I've been in that position. So for women and girls, gender-based violence limits our access to education, employment, and healthcare. It perpetuates poverty. Additionally, children witnessing gender-based violence face trauma. They have a heightened future violent risks, and their worsening poverty. They have unresolved gender-based violence, undermines communities. It hinders our economic development, and it perpetuates inequality. By empowering women and girls, we strengthen the solidarity of entire societies. We create a strong defense against a future from trafficking and from violence. And I just wanted to show you this one thing that I wrote, and this is my last thing. I said, we act as guardians of a vision dedicated to addressing gender inequality, promoting the empowerment of all women and girls, ensuring their equal participation and recognizing their rights. Substantial threats to women's rights persist as a significant resurgence of patriarchal attitudes has emerged. Therefore, a decisive response is imperative. This juncture that we have at this point in history will remember us for what we did and how we have to accelerate change through our commitment together and collectively. But it says that The juncture represents a crucial opportunity for individuals committed to the welfare of women and girls to articulate and execute actions that honour the commitments that have been established in Beijing. So the history will judge the courage with which we've confronted these challenges, but we must come together in solidarity against injustice. Women must be central to all discussions to achieve justice and eradicate gender inequality. Okay, it is both an honour and a responsibility to amplify women and girls' voices. And cultivating resilience necessitates fostering an environment that nurtures our strengths collectively and achieving full equality and participation in leadership, policy and government, addressing violence against women and girls, and ensuring adequate finance are essential components. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for bearing with me and my terrible technology skills. And it's a pleasure and it's an honor to be here.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Petrina. Your presentation was very inspiring, and I think if this conference wasn't present, you probably deserve a standing ovation because your experience is really inspiring. So I think that the time is running. The topic was so interesting that we didn't say the time is running. Now we can go to the interactive part very quickly. And please, if you want to ask your question, raise your hand, and so we can give you the floor to ask your question. Before we start, I have my first question. I have my first question to Wendy that I want to address to Wendy. Can we say that the violence, zero violence concept is something utopic, as we know that in the world where we are now, the violence increasing and human nature is becoming very intolerant? This question is for Wendy. And then Kushi, after that, Kushi, you can open your mic. Wendy, please.
Okay, your question says zero variance, but sorry, can you come again?
I want to know, can we say that it's possible to have to achieve our zero violence concept? Because more we're going, more the world have digital, more human become intolerant.
Okay, yes, thank you very much. Thank you once again. Yes, we can achieve that. I told you I nurture young minds. A lot of things are happening to them, but the little we can do, some of them are turning away from those habits. So if we can have more hands that will do that too, we can have it. Educate them, give them seminars, train them, tell them the reason why this should be like this and this should be like this, like that. And by the grace of God, we are getting there. They are changing. They are changing. Did you understand? So we can achieve that. We can achieve zero violence if we can catch them young. If we can able to come out in thousands, millions, you do your own part, I do my own part. And again, let's remember that charity begins at home. Sometimes I tell my parents that, okay, we do our own, but you as well have your own at home to do. If we join hands together, we can achieve them, which we are doing, and we are seeing results. Because sometimes these children, the things they are passing through, they cannot be able to say it out unless if we are free with them. And another thing, develop love where they are. Once you give them that love, tell them that, oh, just like the last speaker, how she opened up and tell us that she was once a victim of sex trafficking. Yes, open your heart to them. They will tell you everything that is bothering them. With that, you know the next step, how to attend to their matter. And at the end of the day, we will achieve results. about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Kushi, please allow us some few minutes because Mrs. Gladness Muyaga from Tanzania joined us, and she is also a speaker for this session. She's a lawyer and human rights activist with 14 years of experience, specializing in gender equality, woman empowerment, civil and commercial law, and human rights advocacy. So welcome, Gladness, please. Sorry, you're welcome.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you so much. I was asking Diana to be the last one, but unfortunately she forgot about me. It's okay, yeah, because I was on my way. So I'll be speaking concerning the safety tracking on how the zero tolerance can be applied. But first, before that, we need to know why women tolerate violence. What's the reason behind? Why do they take it violence as a normal thing? Why do they tolerate it? What's the reason for them to be under that situation without saying anything?
My apology, Miss Gladness, excuse me, please, your background is very noisy. Is it possible to go somewhere more quiet? Because
oh, okay, let me just go to the place where it's quiet.
Thank you. While Mr. Gladness going to the quiet place, please, you can start sharing your question in the chat box. So when she will finish and conclude, I think Mrs. Kushi Sharma will be the first to ask her question. So we are waiting to Miss Gladness Muyaga from Tanzania. Okay. So I think.
Okay, okay, I'm here.
Thank you very
I
much.
hope
Yes,
there
it's more better
is no
now. Thank
noise
you.
right now. Can you hear me
Yes,
properly?
thank you. Yes, properly. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's okay. So I ask a question like, why do we think that, first before presentation, why do we think that women tolerate violence? What makes them to take it as a normal thing? Why are they staying in that situation without saying anything, without raise their voice up about the violence? Why do you think about that? We need to ask ourselves first that, because we cannot say that we need to promote a zero tolerance, but still yet the violence is still continue. The abusive will still continue. Why is not ending? Why are most of women tolerate that? Why are they staying quiet even though they are being abused? So the only thing we need to ask ourselves, like, what's the reason behind? I come up with a finding that one of the reasons why the women are being abused and they still stay quiet because of the economic instability. Especially in our area here in Tanzania, most of women, economic instability is the reason why they cannot move from the violence. They cannot move away. They cannot move on from the corner of the violence that they are being tolerated for so long. Due to the economic instability, some of the women, they are very dependent to their man. So they think that I cannot raise these children. I cannot be on my own. So I have to tolerate it to endure everything that I'm going through. So economic instability is one of the powerful things here. Like most of the women, they are tolerating the violence. They'll be the victim, and yet they are not speaking out. Another thing is underestimate of the perception from the society. In our society, instead of helping the victim, they are judging the victim first before helping her or him, those children, young children. So even the tracking safety space of reporting those victims, it's not even safe. The safe place is not safe at all. So it's like when a victim go to report the action of the abuse, the only thing they meet there is the judgment. They have been judged before even helping, like, why have you been beaten? Or are you the cause? So they are jump to the conclusion of the victim that the victim is the cause of being abused. So that's the other thing. The other thing is ideological beliefs. here in Tanzania, like when a married woman being married in a family and a man abusing her, there's that belief or say that you have to tolerate, you have to, that is the husband, that's all men are. So that thing which they have been fed since their childhood until they are getting married is the thing which they are making them to stay in the violence, even though they want to move in, but they move out, but they cannot do that because they have to stay. Like, it's a belief that my parents, my elders told me to tolerate, is how men are. That is not an excuse of being violated. Okay. And another thing is like a traditional. Here there is a tradition of different tribes who are like, many are powerful. Many, they have to, in order to be loved, you have to be beaten whenever you are doing wrong. There are a tribe calling Kuria in Musoma region. It's like beating a woman is the way of showing you love her. That is what they believe. Like beating a woman is a way of showing you love her. But it's not, that is what they be believing, what they've been created since their childhood. So when they grow up, they have that mentality like, if a man doesn't beat me, he doesn't love me. So in order to prevent that, they need education. They need to be aware of what is going on. They need to know that being slapped, being assaulted, being insulted is an abuse. Some others, it's like it's an insult. No, an insult is an abuse, because no one can just wake up and beat you up. They'll set even a little point, like insulting you. After that, beating you up. So they go on, go on, and go on and go on. So we need to know that the safety place of this tracking, these channels of reporting this victimizing of being abused is the channel which are judging those victims. So we need to know that how can we help those tracking area, those tracking safety place for victim to feel safe to report what they have gone through in their marriage or in their society. Also, the other thing, there's a bad advising surrounding people. The bad advising surrounding people is like many of the violence come from the relatives. We need to know that. The violence is not coming from different people. The violence comes within the family. Many of the violence is come from the people who knows you better, like a father, like a brothers, uncles. It's coming from there. So for you to report that, you need to have a courage, because the member of your family will say that, why did you report your uncle? It's a shame to the family. Okay, he abused you, but you have to stay quiet. He's your uncle, he's your father, he's your brother. So that mentality can bring much and much bigger way of like, how can I say it? Like creating this victim, creating the violence to be more powerful. Because people are told you don't have to report him. He's your brother. You don't have to report it. He's a neighbor. You want to create enmity. You don't have to do that. So things like that can make us not activists, not even to move one step ahead. Because we usually talk about this, like, please, you need to change, we need to end violence, you need to end violence against women and girls, against children, against young boys, against boys and men. But what does the society take about it? Are we the only ones see those violence? Are we the only ones see those abusive action? What does the society do about it? So the only thing we have to do is, like, when we empowering these people, when we raise voices, we need to raise it within the society. We need to raise within the family so that they can know what they are doing is a violence. Because if you tell each other, like activists, like professionals, doctors, experts, lawyers, advocates, it can stay in our mind. Yes, we know it's abusive. What are the people in the society? What are we going to do about it? Are we going to raise the voice within this meeting, or are we going to create a channel where we can spread this information toward the society? Because most of the society know nothing about it. They know nothing that this is abusive. This is a violence. So the only thing we need to know is, like, how can we spread? How can we spread this information to the society? How can we spread this thing that we have against violence to the community that we are living in? Okay, the last thing we need to do, like, apart from the community, we need to go to this, we need to raise voices to these channels, safety track, safety area, to report this action against this violence against women and girls. How can we raise awareness to them? Like, we don't need to judge them. We need to listen and help them, rather than judging them and criticizing on what happened to them. So that's the only thing I have regarding my topic. And I'll share, I didn't have a slide, but I'll share the presentation which I have and some of the example of different societies that we have in Tanzania and different tribes that we have, so that everyone can be aware of it. I'll share in the group so that everyone in the group and the speakers can know what's happening here in Tanzania. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Gladness. I think that it was very nice to wait. So, but something you said that remind me that in there is an ethnicity here in Cameroon where the culture think that if your husband don't beat you, okay, he don't love you. So for them, it's normal. They normalize the violence because they think that if your husband don't beat you, it means that your husband don't love you. Okay, Kushi Sharma, please, you can open your mic and ask your question.
Okay, thanks. So hello everyone, I'm Kushi and I'm from India. So basically I have questions regarding the digital feminism and women's safety. So we all are on social media every day, right? It's given women a voice, a platform to call out injustice, break stereotypes, and push for equality. We have seen movements like #MeToo and #TimesUp. Yeah, they actually makes an impact in holding people accountable and inspiring changes. But I want to ask that is social media really empowering women, or is it just another space where misogyny and harassment are still growing? We see that women are speaking up, but they are also getting trolled, threatened, and bullied. Feminist movements are like everywhere, in every corner of the world. Yet things like online abuse, deepfake scandals, and cyber stalking are rising too. So I want to ask, what do you think, can digital feminism actually create a real change, or is it just stuck in the hashtag and trends? And beyond social media, are we truly addressing the increasing case of domestic violence, workplace harassment, and honor crimes, which are really very common in Asia, I would say? Or are these issues still brushed under the rug? Thank you so much. Please answer anyone.
I think you addressed your question to Eileen because she's the one who talked about the digital, I think.
Yeah, so thank you for your question. Thank you for your question. To answer your question, it's a bit of a, I would say it's a nuanced answer, I would say. You shouldn't see social media as the only tool in your box to fight gender discrimination and violence against women more widely, or violence discrimination, but it is through Politics for Her, my organization, we use it as a tool to give voices to people who don't usually have the space to express themselves. And we also use social media as a way of, through our own pages, as a mechanism of community and of support. And we provide resources offline and in the real world with practical, tangible tools to how to address these issues. And unfortunately, we need a variation of tools at our disposal. This through changing societal norms, policy change, talking to governments. There are it's to bring about change, you need a multifaceted approach. But digital feminism is an accessible and building a social media movement is one of the most accessible ways in which women and girls can bring about a movement and have a feeling of sisterhood and community that they can find online. Of course, there's always risks of online gender-based violence, which is becoming more concerning. And I understand that perhaps the confusion that digital feminism sometimes is reduced to just the hashtags, but and certainly there have been rollbacks in women's rights, especially in sexual harassment with Me Too but I just it is but I think the point that I'm trying to make is that you have to combine digital feminism with grassroots feminism and local movements to combine efforts and to try your best to bring about change. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Petrina, this question is for you from Canvi. He wants to know how to avoid emotional violence at home and at the workplace.
Hi, well, okay, well, thank you very much for the question. It depends when you talk about violence at home or you're talking about emotional violence, it would help because I don't have a right or wrong answer for that because really it depends who the violence is being directed towards. So if it's directed at a parent or a brother or a sister, or if you have another family member, it may be that you may see or hear abuse, or it may be happening to the person that you may know. So when violence is used towards you, this is a form of abuse, and so violence at home can always make you feel incredibly, well, first things you must do is never blame yourself, but you have to seek the help. So depending on where you are, if you feel that you have the courage, then you have to be able to seek help. It's not possible, and it's very easily to feel ashamed or confused or unhappy, but I don't know how you can, without knowing enough about the context, it would be something for somebody to share relationally, and how we could discuss and look at ways that we could help and support measures that could be put in place and implemented. But it's certainly it's not your fault, and it's not the person's fault, whoever you may know, and avoiding it is very complex and intricate, and it would have to be explored in more context to be able to give you an answer that would potentially safeguard you. So I wouldn't want to say anything that could, potentially, but it's something I'm happy to help or support offline and work with. So feel free to reach out to me, and I'll get to know a little bit more of the context. Does that help?
I think can we get the answers? Now there's a Asaf Fatima who asked the question. I think to Dr. Wilkins, how to deal indirect gender-based violence. So she wants to know how it is possible to deal with indirect gender-based violence. Dr. Wilkins?
I'm not sure what she means by indirect gender-based violence. Could that be psychological, emotional violence? I think the best is to seek help. If that's what she means, is to seek help, I think, and break that silence. Because what is killing a lot of women, they're always, when we are dealing particularly with maybe the narcissist or bullies, they are always indicators. There are always signs, but sometimes we fear to come out in the open because we fear that we are going to be blamed. But my advice is that never conform to the culture of silence. Talk to somebody, if it's a friend, if it's a boss, maybe your supervisor, if it's at school, tell that person that how you feel. If they make you feel uncomfortable, whether it's in the ways that they touch you, the boundaries that they are exceeding, you have to make sure that they know that you are not comfortable with the way they talk to you, with the way they are touching you, and so on and so forth. And if the situation persists, please escalate to relevant authorities. If it's a learner at school, they need to report to the guidance and counseling teachers, to the school management. If it's in the community community leaders, the church leaders, and including the criminal justice, whether it's the police. Never maintain or conform to the culture of silence. I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wilkins. We have another question from YouTube. I don't really know to whom we can address it. The question is, sorry, I think it's not easy to have a stream and then chat box at the same time. So what initiative can be taken on our personal and social level to overcome issues like this, particularly? I think we want to talk about violence, I think. So the speakers that can take the floor, because I don't really know who the question is addressed. Emilia, if you can say something.
Sure. Yeah, thank you for that question. If I understand correctly, you basically mean, what can we do to basically on a personal and social level to overcome issues like these personally? So I think today has been a real eye-opener into, this is going to sound quite corny, but how we spend our time is a very important earmark as to how we will impact the future, whatever we have in mind. And everybody has, they have interests and they have things that they would like to achieve. They have dreams, we have goals, ambitions. So when you talk about our personal and our social level, we have personal goals and ambitions, and often they do tie in with the topics that we're talking about today. And maybe, you know, you have an idea that you would like to see women represented more in tech or entrepreneurial positions. Perhaps you have more of a passion for young people to reach better levels of education in your country, in your region. You all have something that effectively you will be an agent for change, and it is about your choices in doing that. And so also then socially, it's about, you know, that classic phrase of like, you are who your friends are, which sometimes is not always the most useful, but like surrounding yourself with people that, number one, can be like-minded, but also surrounding yourself with people that you can challenge or can challenge you. So that's just taking on a personal and social level and finding like the areas and the little corners of you know, research for yourself. I think on a grander scale and on a systemic scale, so more, you know, more commonly now, like with what one of the speakers was talking about, like digitally, we have so many opportunities to connect with people or to speak our mind online and do that with, you know, caution, but at the same time, making yourself aware, whether it's, you know, any sort of topic you feel passionately about, whether you feel, so one of mine is about ending violence against women and girls and making sure, like what Petrina was saying, you're having a trauma-informed approach and a strength-based approach to the way that you work with your people, and specifically, perhaps in many cases, young girls and young women. So just ensuring that like there are multiple organizations that can set you up with the skills to conflict resolution, the skills to peace building, and becoming, you know, public speakers and such. So, for example, the International, or IOM, International Organization for Migration, Amnesty International have free courses. Link with me on LinkedIn. I will send you them. I've completed some. Women's Aid Federation England, I think it's called. They and Rape Crisis and many other platforms. This is specifically to the UK, but you can actually access from anywhere, I believe. They have courses that can be, at a price, but often if you are a member or you work in a similar organization with similar goals, you can get a discount. There, I believe, just setting yourself up with the education to understand. And one of the speakers, I can't remember, Petrina, I think it was Petrina, who spoke about how bystanding is there's many people that are not innocent bystanders. It's a skill as well. Sometimes it's to be courageous. If you see something wrong, you need to say it. There's this classic phrase in the UK where you see it, say it, sorted, and it's the police have it in the metro, sort of like the subway in the UK. Anyway, I digress. But basically, to surround yourself with opportunities that make that happen. And there are also many platforms and initiatives that are set up for specific people. And I hope that there's more in your region that you can get involved in. If not, you should start it. There's something always has to start somewhere, and I think you should be one of those people that does that. Overall, as well, using your platform, using your voice, maybe having that difficult conversation at the dinner table, perhaps sharing something. If it means something to you and you want to see a world without that problem, then use your voice. Attend conferences like this, speak at conferences like this. Just take it upon yourself, but also be mindful. Do take a break. Do what you can to take care of yourself. You cannot do it alone. But yeah, also look after yourself as well. Does that answer the question? I'm not sure, but if it doesn't, just ask me on LinkedIn and I'll ask you and I'll question you there. Answer you there.
Thank you very much. I think that is understand what you mean. So I think that we'll take two more question, and then Dr. Main will say the last word. So the question is, this is for Wendy, I think. Zero tolerance, how can it be inculcated in the people at personal and professional level? Wendy.
Okay. Zero tolerance. Oh, I can say that when something is happening around you, if it is something you cannot tolerate, for you to be on a safer side, just maintain peace. Just maintain. Then you can now meet someone that you can talk to, then now share ideas with the person so that you can have more encouragement. You can have more encouragement. You can meet, like in Nigeria, we have people that we call human rights. You can meet them to share more ideas, discuss your issues with them, to know how the next step to follow. You can tolerate. I don't know. I don't know exactly how.
Okay, thank you. I don't know, maybe if another speaker can add his word to help you, maybe you can feel free to say something because tolerance is something really difficult to talk about.
And
mostly is on behalf.
Yes.
Exactly.
It depends on it and the way you understand that situation.
Can I zero tolerance, I think the thing that comes to mind is that it is something that has to change at a societal level. And unfortunately, there are no top-down policies or frameworks that you can just impose, and you have to, from school up, I would say, educate young people and impose new standards of what is acceptable behavior and what is not acceptable behavior. And also, like the other speakers were saying, is to teach, even I would say at school and also online in professional settings, how to be a bystander and how to speak up when someone is acting in a way that is not correct. Because ultimately, when I speak as a victim of sexual assault myself, when there is nothing like solidarity from other people in a moment of crisis, that it makes you feel seen and it makes you feel like that what you're experiencing is valid and is unacceptable. And so I think it's about implementing small ways of changing norms around what is acceptable behavior and what isn't, and creating safety mechanisms that allows victims to feel secure and safe, I think.
Thank you very much. I think we don't have no more question even on YouTube. So Dr. Mayin, please, can you share the last word with us before we close definitely?
Thank you, Ms. Ongla, for giving me the floor. Before starting, I would like to really appreciate the way you have carried the session. Thank you, Ms. Ongla, for giving us time. And Ms. Petrina, Eileen, Dr. Renuka, Emilia, it's lovely meeting you for the first time. I hope we catch up again. Dr. Agness, always, I love your insights. Gladness, again, thank you for joining us. And Elizaberth, I'd really love to see you grow as you are doing with time. I hope you will grow more power to you. The ending remarks, I would like to add up with a few points because all of you have covered amazing points, and genuinely, this is what we are struggling with. But I'm going to sound very irrelevant when I'm going to give this suggestion to all of you, whoever is listening, is that the only thing which has been successful around me dealing with collaborations on ground and dealing with different diversity, urban, rural areas, it starts with one thing: from your home. You have to find courage at home. You have to make sure, if you are the one who is taking care of your children, if you're elder, if you are mature, you need to bring that confidence at home, number one. This is what you need to do. Number two is that if you feel like you are the one who understands what's right, what's wrong, you have that courage to speak up. There are many people around the world who don't have access of internet, maybe understanding from where they can get help. Be that help for them. It starts with you. So if you're going to stay silent, I think you are part of that group which are suppressing us. So it's not going to help. So eventually, do not look upon the policymakers. Do not look upon anyone who's going to help you or going to solve the situations. You need to take that first step. It starts with you, with your understanding. And trust me, I can tell you a number of stories with the ripple effect that we have created, not just in Pakistan, but in Ethiopia, in UAE, you name it. One day we will have that webinar on that. But the thing is, it really works. So if you move out of complaining zone and come up, with the solutions, which is under your capacity, you have to take that step. Else you have no right to complain because you're okay with that submission. So it's within you, starts within you, change, it's within you. So this is all I have to say. And I would personally like to thank all of you, especially our participants who have joined in. And there are many who are live on YouTube. Understand that these speakers who have joined in, they are doing a remarkable job around the world, regional-wise. You can go through their profiles, read their profiles. They're doing their best, and they're trying to make a change. It's high time you connect with these individuals to find your answers. They can definitely mentor you. They're there to help you because they have the spirit of giving forward. And that's why they're here to talk with you. They have taken out time from their precious, it's Sunday, and they have taken out time for you for this cause. That means it's mean a lot to them. So I would like to name one more time: Petrina, Eileen, Renuka, Emilia, Dr. Agness, Gladness, and Elizaberth. Thank you so much for taking us time. So this is all from my side. I will give my mic back to Ongla.
Thank you, Dr. Mayin. Thank you. Thank you very much. So before we definitely close, I want to remind that next week, so on 5th and the 6th April, we have to stay tuned because we have another amazing session with another topics. And Women Ascension Community Call, we share with you all the necessary documents and link on WhatsApp chat box. And so to close, I also want to thank all our speakers. I will not read all the names. I think Dr. Mayin already read all the names, so I don't spell again. So thank you very much, all participants, and see you next weekend for the next session. Bye-bye. Thank you.